around that stadium.
Oh, is that right?
Wait, under the best circumstance, and they of course have to push out the perimeter, because you can't have a Super Bowl without the NFL experience. It's very important.
Very important.
Right, because people who are rich enough to be able to pay thousands of dollars, they're exactly the kind of people who want to throw a football through a tire that looks like your dick. Okay, they really want to do that. So,
I've got one of those. It's so strange.
Yeah. So parking spaces that are even in the vicinity, $5,000 for a parking.
Jesus.
Yeah, I mean that's ridiculous. I wouldn't pay any more than $3. Okay, that's just me. I'm cheap.
Well, it used to be $3, but then Biden with inflation, bastard. All right, you can share now. Biden with his damn inflation.
All righty.
Ready.
Yeah. You don't think I need a haircut, do you?
Let me see. Hang on. Yeah, maybe a trim. Maybe just a slight trim before Sunday. Oh, wings. I'm bringing wings, by the way. And I'm thinking of maybe some pork belly, but I'm definitely bringing wings, like a lot of wings.
Well, wait a minute. There aren't any to get. How are you getting?
Well, I know a guy. I hate to be. I know a guy.
It's not. Oh, it is the Brad and Britt cast talking about the procurement of chicken wings for the Super Bowl, among other important stuff today. We're glad you're with us. I got a question here, and
Sure.
I haven't read anything about this. I don't know whether it's a discussion point. I don't know whether I'm out of bounds for bringing it up, and it has nothing to do with the fact that we've had some problems with older members of the Supreme Court. How should we say, hanging on a little bit too long sometimes, and causing what that's caused. But why wouldn't Queen Elizabeth abdicate the throne?
Yeah.
And let that ne'er-do-well son of hers with the ears, Charles, become the king? And she could be alive to witness it. It would be a spectacle. It would be a big deal, right? It would be not. Instead, apparently, she's determined to die so that there can be a funeral, which by definition puts a damper on the next person succeeding her son. It changes that, Sarah. Okay, she's proven the point. She's done that. She is older than America's oldest TV show, Meet the Press. Been 70 years. She's been the queen. I don't think Meet the Press has been on for 70. It's that long, whatever it is. What am I asking something that doesn't make any sense? Or is it, you can people resign as king or queen for terrible reasons, right? What's his name who banged that chick? Sarah, what was her name? Wallace
Simpson. Wallace Simpson. So far, I just like to say that we've had the guy with the ears and the guy that banged the chick. So far, we've had some real specific definitions of human beings.
He wanted to hang out with the concubine instead of being the king. So she could leave. Probably that record of 70 years is not going to be touched. She's the Babe Ruth. Oh, okay, well, his record got beaten. So, okay, take it back. Maybe she needs to keep going to secure a place so that no one can outdo her in the throne. She's obviously not thinking of that. But am I off in just wondering why she wouldn't do that? Instead, over the weekend, and as you know, there's nothing I hate more than talking about royal anything. I don't give a shit about that. Yes. I don't give a shit. But here I am. But all weekend long, what a great thing she's done. She has conferred some kind of bullshit queen concubine title onto Horseface, and we're supposed to say, what a generous, wonderful thing. Fuck off. Fuck off. Logan Roy, fuck off. You know, what is that?
So it appears that Meet the Press started in 1947, and she ascended to the throne in 1951.
That means she's got to do it another, 6 years to beat Meet the Press? Yeah.
Maybe 52. Maybe 52 is when she actually went in. So, yeah, she.
Thank you for the fact check on that one.
Well, I just want to make sure. And doesn't it make the episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm where Albert Brooks gets to look at his own funeral? Doesn't that make it that much more intense?
Yes.
And more, so if she was able to actually, if they could actually have a funeral where she could see what people are saying about her, wouldn't that be instructive? And maybe she would actually step off the damn throne. She would see it, and she'd be happy and move on.
I'm pretty sure that they'll be saying a lot of nice things about her. I don't think she has to worry about that. It's just I just don't understand that. I don't get that.
I think most people, well, for a great deal of people in Great Britain, despite what people think here, don't give a shit about the Queen or royalty or the royal family or any of that stuff, and they think it's a big, huge, giant money suck.
Britt, I know that you're sidetracking the subject. Okay,
a little bit.
No, completely. So. But that means we're done. No, we're done with that because you're going in the direction of why did I talk about it? And now you're saying, well, nobody cares about it anyway, which they don't, but they do. And it's the headline of,
I would just say that the people who do care don't want the guy with the ears to be in the guy. They don't want him to be the guy, and they're happy with old ass her being there as opposed to the.
Wait a minute!
Wait a minute! Did I steer it back on track somehow, Brad?
No, you did. You did because what you're now saying is people are hoping that he dies before she does.
Okay, see?
Right.
I'd get there. Just have some patience. I was going to get there.
So who gets the gig? Prince Andrew, the child pornographer Jeffrey Epstein, whatever the fuck he is. Who gets it? Who gets it?
And ultimately, I know what you were thinking the entire time was, Wallace Simpson wasn't even that hot. What was he thinking? It wasn't even really. I don't know why he gave it all up for that.
That's very misogynist of you. We've been staying on track here perfectly, and you just killed it.
Just nailed it. Just destroyed it. Just did
all right.
Everything.
All right. That's it. Another one bites the dust. Queen gone. See you. Okay.
We didn't get a chance to talk about this one, and again, the U.S. economy, and when those January numbers came out. I know by now that you've seen all of the great video from Fox and Friends. They were just dying to jack off over negative 300,000 jobs, but it turned out almost 500,000 jobs added during January. They revised December, they revised November, and as it turns out, in the first 12 months of Joe Biden's term, the U.S. economy added about 7 million jobs, Brad, which is the first time I believe that that's happened. However, the Democrats can't run on that, so it's really not even worth talking about, is it?
Well, obviously, it's not quite that, but it's almost that. And I'll get to the Foxification stupidity in a second here. It's by any normal measure a lot more than we would have expected a year ago in terms of how many people have started to go back to work, have taken new jobs. The whole narrative of everyone retiring and the workforce shrinking, and it's the end of America, and God forbid we should have immigration to maybe help. I guess last year was the first year in the history of the United States that the piddling amount of immigration was responsible for more people than births. It's just some kind of unbelievable. It's unbelievable. But even with a great rebound in the number of jobs, we're still a couple million below where it was in 2019, which is not Joe Biden's fault. He didn't get out a calculator and say, "Oh, we want a lot of. We don't want quite that many." There are a lot of differences between now and then, but it doesn't work to just spout numbers because people don't think of macroeconomic unemployment or job numbers as something that affects their life unless they got a job, in which case, well, they have a job. And Joe Biden didn't give me that job. And whatever happened to, it's not government that creates jobs, it's private business that creates jobs. Well, you always say that when you're the out party and you're criticizing the party that's in, especially if they're doing well in job creation. which of course they don't actually create the jobs, but they can create the circumstances for which private business can feel a little bit more confident to hire people. But that's why, and we all know who's better at messaging, and we all know who's better at undermining the party on the other side. No matter what they do, it's not what you believe you saw or heard or read. They're lying, and it doesn't mean anything. And what about inflation? And what about the supply chain? And what about, what about a macro number that doesn't mean anything to your life, to lots of things which do mean something to your life, which is the price of gas, the price of bread, the price of rent, the price of college, and all those things. So that is the answer. So I love MSNBC, but no, this is not going to turn around Joe Biden's disapproval numbers in a week. Everyone isn't going to just say, well, I didn't know that there were 7 million jobs created in the last. If it only would have been 5 million, I would have not liked. I like it. It doesn't work that way. That's my answer.
But it is something. I mean, it's not enough.
I'm not saying it's not. Of course it's something. Of course it's something. Of course it is.
It's just frustrating because, like, if two people got hired at an ice cream shop in fucking El Paso, Sean Hannity would light up a cigar and have like naked showgirls dancing around and flapping their tits in his face at 9:30, right? I mean, that's what would happen during the Trump administration.
But what you said at the beginning is actually the foundation for this utter insanity here surrounding what is objectively a good positive number, which is that all morning long on Fox and Friends, leading up to 8:30, which is when economic numbers are released, different kinds, all of them. 8:30 is that magic time every day, Fridays, first Friday in any month, they release the unemployment and job creation numbers. So all morning long, up until 8:30, the people on Fox were all in on the quote unquote consensus that this was going to be a disaster. Omicron had devastated this economy, which of course is Joe Biden's fault, which means when the numbers come out with a big minus sign, it only was a question of how many hundreds of thousands of jobs will have disappeared, throwing more people into poverty in this country directly due to Joe Biden's policy. What are we going to, and they put the number up in giant size font on the screen, minus 300,000. This is before 8:30. This is before the number was known, right? Correct. So the number comes out, and it's not only not minus, it's up.
Plus.
It's plus what, 400,000, 500? That was a lot.
It was almost 5. So they were almost 800,000 off. Right. If you look at it that way.
So what's their response? The response is to put up a graphic saying inflation's still running at high of the last 40 years in Biden's economy. That's how they do it.
That's right.
They immediately pivot to, why aren't you talking about this, blah, blah, and they pretend it didn't happen. Now, let me pile on to that with what I noticed late Friday afternoon and then into the evening. And I posted this Friday night. I updated it today. The big story as Friday unrolled was Mike Pence actually developing 1/3 of a testicle on one side of his body and standing in front of what you would think would be a friendly crowd that wasn't going to boo him, because they don't boo at the Federalist Society. They just go, fuck you, here's another shitty judge. That's basically what they do.
They don't boo.
Right. Right. So that's where Mike Pence reiterated that Donald Trump was wrong, and that no, Mike Pence, didn't have the constitutional right to overthrow the election and throw the country into chaos and violate the Constitution. And for that, there's a spectrum of response to that, from this is the most courageous thing that you can ever imagine, greatest story ever told, Mike Pence, versus big fucking deal. In that speech, you never said that, by the way, Joe Biden won the election, and that Donald Trump not only tried to get you to overthrow the election, he tried to have you killed. He tried to have me killed. Mm-hmm. He left a lot of things off the table. So that side of the response to it is that somehow Mike Pence, in his mind, whatever there is left of it, or if there ever was one to disappear, actually believes he has some kind of political future in this country, but that by not going any further than he did, that somehow there's some wiggle room in there. And of course, there really isn't. And Pence had no political future anyway, because we have to go back. And again, this is all blocking and tackling, going back to our original precepts. Anybody that does business with Donald Trump at any level, personal, political, financial, business wise, it always ends in tears, just a question of when. And for Mike Pence, I'm sure the tears have already flowed with his wife, and he knows that it's over. But in public, he pretends otherwise. Now, all day long, that was topic A on the news, on the internets, on major newspapers, in everywhere. That you saw that video probably 8 times by 8 o'clock. If you're a news watcher, if you pay attention, it was a big deal. It really was, because it kind of shows that in general, whatever you think of Mike Pence, and I don't think much of him, that it's just part of the slow turning of the battleship away from Trump, and it's slow, and it's not over, and it isn't even 1/10 over for Republicans who are just dipping their toe in the water to see how far, what can I say to try to somehow assuage and we talked about this on the last podcast, what I think is the false poll reading of 60% of Republicans now say they believe the party is more important than Donald Trump, or they want, they want somebody else, and all that. So they're buying into that, guys like Pence, and say, well, maybe there's an opening. Maybe there's some kind of opening for me. But here's the point. It was everywhere, that story, Friday into Friday evening and much of the weekend. On Fox, I noticed this Friday evening. On their website Friday evening, it was story number, you ready? 33 from the top. And you have to go way down. 33. So it right. I mean, it didn't exist. Okay. It did not exist. And then, hang on here a second. I'm getting a little disturbance there. Got rid of it. And then all weekend long, they didn't mention it on Fox television, on Fox News. They didn't mention it Friday night. It was only mentioned apparently twice on Sunday during the Howie Kurtz suck-up-a-thon to the boss, whatever the name of his show is. This is his media show. And I think on the Brett Baer show for 1 second. In other words, the Fox people, your grandpa who watches Fox, the people in the rest homes, the people who are watching all the time, to them, Mike Pence did nothing out of the ordinary last week. He said nothing. He gave no speech. He said nothing about Donald Trump. It doesn't mean anything, because the bubble must be maintained at all costs. So Fox is playing this game, this footsie game. Oh, well, we're not running his rallies live on Saturday night from Texas, but we just won't mention the fact that Mike Pence just raked him over the coals, as much as that's raking Donald Trump over the coals to say that Donald Trump was wrong. It's an important noticing of the bubble still intact, because this idea at any level, that Fox has those crazy ass opinion shows in the evening, but they're a straight news organization all day long, and they have good journalists there. Forget it. It's not true. Who really believes that? Ask Chris Wallace, ask Shepard Smith, ask Jonah Goldberg, ask campaign Carl Cameron. Ask them. They'll tell you, and you don't need them to tell you. They're all people who left Fox because they couldn't take it anymore. They couldn't take it anymore.
So, but are you on board with calling this some sort of act of courage for Mike Pence, or over? I mean, to me, it's a minimal act of courage.
It's not an act of courage at all. There's no courage involved here.
Thank you. I
Britt,
appreciate you
Britt,
downgrading it.
and for those people not watching us but just listening, it is not an act of courage for me to say that Britt is wearing a hat.
It's just a statement of fact.
Wait, I take it back. It's an equally courageous thing that I just said. Britt's wearing a hat to what Mike Pence said. No, we cannot allow ourselves to reach down and say that stating the obvious, stating the truth, stating facts is some kind of act of courage, especially when it comes from a guy who for over a year now has essentially been silent on speaking out in regards to the man who called for his assassination.
Tried to kill him. Tried to get him killed.
I mean, that is not a high bar to jump over. And by the way, remember, he still hasn't done that.
No.
He didn't do that.
No, he didn't.
He just said he was wrong on the technical aspect of his intentional misreading of the Constitution, which, no, Donald Trump didn't read the Constitution to come up with this scheme, or what is popularly known as the Green Bay sweep, which I've posted another story here. You can find it pretty easily. It's a freeze frame of Peter Navarro, who is, graduated from the University of Wackadoodle. I mean, this guy's just completely nuts.
Right.
And he was on the Steve Bannon podcast and comedy hour on Monday. And there's a video version of it. And behind him, the background is a slide of the actual Green Bay Packers sweep from 1965. And it shows Paul Hornung following the two great guards of that era, number 64, Jerry Kramer, number 63, Fred Fuzzy Thurston. The other two members of the offensive line were, if I remember correctly, were Forrest Gregg and Bob Skoronski. Several of those men are in the Hall of Fame. I'd like to know, do the Green Bay Packers fans like this? Do they like the fact that one of the most storied, legendary plays in the history of football, people who follow football, been football fans, they know what that means, that it's being used to describe the plan to overthrow the United States of America, to overthrow the election, to reinstall Donald. I mean, there's a big difference between trying to gain 8 yards, sweep right, and overthrowing the government. But that's just me. I'm not a Packers fan. Maybe they love it. Well,
it's not their fault. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. It's because these assholes.
Then you can tell him to. You should tell him to fucking stop it.
You should stop.
It's just go Neil Young on it. Go Neil Young here.
This is the problem again, as many people say, with the Green Bay Packers not having a single owner. If they had like an owner or something, the guy could step out and go, "You stop that!" But they've got, they're owned by a whole conglomerate, and everybody's got a share and all this other.
Well, wait a minute. So if the Packers are the most obvious representation of communism in all of sports, in socialism, where the means of production are owned by lots of other people, not just one capitalist pig owner, then don't they realize that if they call it the Green Bay Packers sweep to overthrow the government, they're essentially maybe, well, wait a minute, actually it makes sense, because there's a kind of a fascistic bend to that, if you want to really stretch the use of the language.
It all comes together, doesn't it? Yeah, it all actually does kind of make sense, all in all. So the other guy who dipped a toe in the water by saying that what Mike Pence was saying was correct and that the President Trump was wrong was Chris Christie. He went on, I think, this week.
Oh God! And it's Britt. This is nothing. This is nothing.
It is. So hang on a second. It is something in and of the effect that there are a couple of guys who are now seeing at least a political benefit to denouncing that, and that they may have some sort of, as you say, a political future. Now, there are some people that are saying Mike Pence is done in 2024. He has no shot because he called President Trump wrong a few days ago, and that it's over. But Chris Christie now again shows minimal courage by stepping forward and going, well, Pence was right.
You know what? Chris Christie could show some courage by stepping away from the plate of Oreos.
How did I know there was a fat joke coming? How did I know
Chris Christie's political career was over the minute he laid down in front of the entrance to the George Washington Bridge single-handedly after moving all the cones all around so that
that
the
would block
bridge would be
traffic.
blocked.
That would do it. Well, now,
Yes, it would. Yeah.
But is this particular headline from The Hill, is this correct? Republicans back Pence rebuke of Trump on overturning 2020 election. Is that a correct headline?
Well, of course, it's a deceptive, rather incomplete.
Yes, it is.
Are you kidding? Kind of headline. And I haven't read the article, but I'm just guessing. Does that mean less than 3, 4, or more than 5? What would be the number of Republicans publicly? Remember, this is publicly. We know that behind the scenes, almost every Republican knows that what Pence said not only was true, which it wasn't a question of whether Pence was going to say it or not. It's always been true. It didn't need Mike Pence to tell us what was told the other day. The information that Mike Pence put out there was not new information that was gleaned by constitutional scholars that Donald Trump couldn't do what he did. So this is bullshit. That's like a Republican talking point.
Kind of.
That they want you to know about, right?
A number of this is the article.
A number of
GOP figures on Sunday said they backed former Vice President Mike Pence in his rebuke of former President Trump's claim that he had the authority over.
Give me a number. Give me a number.
Here's some examples. Former Pence Chief of Staff Mark Short on Sunday said Trump's suggestion that the Vice President could overturn the election results merited response, which was why the former Vice President chose to address his comments.
All right.
Senator Marco Rubio.
Hang on. That's still 0. Okay, that doesn't count. Next.
Senator Marco Rubio told Face the Nation that Vice Presidents simply cannot decide not to certify an election. So we got one. Pressed on whether if he believes the former president's suggestion was wrong, Rubio said he would not want Vice President Harris to overturn the results if Trump were to win the. See, that's not responsive.
Britt, that's not only not +1. That's -1 because that's projecting onto Kamala Harris the same kind of law breaking that Pence did not do, with the assumption that if Kamala Harris was standing there in 2025 in January with an equally close election to the one we had the last time, which, by the way, wasn't close, that she would. So that's a slur. That isn't even a 0. Okay, so we're at -1 here. So go ahead.
Senator John Barrasso of Wyoming. I think we got one for you. He told Fox
he's a hack.
That Pence
what he said.
He said that Pence did his constitutional duty that day. It's not the Congress that elects the president; it's the American people. Brad, is that one Republican? Will you give a win to the Republicans for that one? Okay, former New Jersey.
No, because I'll tell you why. Because it leaves open the door for 50 states and 50 governors and 50 legislatures, if they want to fuck around, to still cause mayhem. And this is the narrowest of threading the needle of nothingness for that to develop into the headline that you read before. It doesn't mean anything.
Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie said the actions of the Vice President took on January the 6th spoke loudly, acting he was glad that Pence finally put words to it. I don't know what took him so long, but I'm glad he did it. Brad, is that one?
Well, but now keep in mind, I just want you to keep in mind that no one who's a true Trumper knows about this. Just keep that in mind. They don't know this. They don't even know this happened. So for us to be discussing this in the light of we're making some progress here, the answer is no, we're not. Because what's going to happen is Trump's going to do another rally here in a week or two, and he's going to go out there. And there will be people that will show up at this, many of whom don't even know what Pence said, right? Mm-hmm. And Trump doesn't have to deal ever in facts. All he needs to do is get up there and just attack Mike Pence. And the people who go to these rallies, they will not process that as, Mike Pence was almost killed. They put up a gallows. They were going to hang. No, they will go right along with Donald Trump, who will call Mike Pence a wussy, a gutless rhino, a person who doesn't understand the Constitution and could not follow. So my answer is This was a big bag of nothing.
I had someone question me a couple of weeks ago and said, where could they find the numbers that I was citing, saying that the majority of people who were hospitalized and died from COVID were unvaccinated. They didn't know where they would be able to find those numbers.
Did you give the answer everywhere?
Anywhere they publish numbers about this. And during an appearance on Face the Nation, finally, H.R. McMaster, who served as National Security Advisor under Trump, said he absolutely agreed with Pence's take on Trump's comments when asked about the remarks. All Americans should agree with Vice President Pence, said H.R. McMaster. Brad, does that count?
No, it doesn't mean this isn't a question of should Americans agree with what Mike Pence said, the painfully obvious technical aspect of what was done. I mean, are we still supposed to give Mike Pence the Medal of Freedom for not trying to overturn the election on January 6th? Is he still deserving of that? I mean, is that how low the bar is for doing your duty?
It's remarkable that he did what he did. I'm surprised that he did what he did on January the 6th of 2021. I'm surprised that he actually did the right thing, given the general lack of any kind of courage. I have to think that he was scared for his life and his brains were scrambled from having to leave, the chamber very quickly because people were trying to murder him. I think if he would have had time to think about it, he might have gone the other way.
Why doesn't he say that?
Well,
why doesn't he tell the truth to the committee? Why doesn't he go on national television in prime time when the hearings occur in April or May or whenever they are, and they will be on Fox? Their audience will not be able to escape at this time. And he should tell the story of actually what happened to him and how later in the day he had made the decision. It actually made it earlier in the day to never try to go against the longstanding traditions and precepts of the U.S. Constitution on what would happen on January 6th in terms of a vice president basically being a confirmation rubber stamp of what was handed to him. He had no power to do it. Why won't he tell that story just to go in front of the Federalist Society and say Donald Trump was wrong? Well, you know what? Donald Trump is wrong about everything. Okay, just about. Every once in a while he'll be right. About something. I mean, Ron DeSantis is a stiff. Okay, I'll give him that.
We do need to get to the big news of the day, which is the National Archives had to retrieve Trump White House records from Mar-a-Lago. It seems to be clear that the president illegally removed records from the White House and took them down to Mar-a-Lago. Of course, he tried to destroy them. We know about that from earlier. My understanding from what I've read is that if he is found guilty of this, that he can no longer run for public office again, Brad.
Well, Britt, I think this is a planted story.
Clearly.
There were so many forecasts of high flooding in Washington, D.C. in January that Donald Trump was just making sure that they stayed high and dry. And no, here's the story. Just add this to the list. And the list is so long. The blackboard is all filled up. We have to do one of those where you flip the backboard around because you got to start on the other side a long time ago with things that just by themselves, just on their own, eliminate any chance for a reasonable person to mount any kind of rational defense of whatever Donald Trump is or was or will be. Of course, you can't take the shit out of the White House. It's not your stuff. It's the people's stuff, and it's going to the National Archive. This is not even a question. Now, I do have some technical question. How did it get from Washington to Florida? Did he hire some thugs from two guys in a truck and they drove it down? I mean, how does that work? Does it go on his airplane? Did he put it on Air Force One on that last flight out of
Every other inauguration
Washington.
every other inauguration besides this one that you've ever seen, they always have the moving trucks at the White House the exact moment the person is being sworn in. Now, this asshole couldn't he couldn't stay around for the swearing in. So you bring up an interesting question as to how many days in advance and how it got there and all this other shit. But yes, I'm not really sure. It just appears that no matter how it happened, it's illegal. And
Well, yeah,
I don't really know. I don't know how I don't know how you get around that.
Well, yeah, this is a question I have that's kind of parallel to and just what would the Pentagon have done with 40,000 voting machines that they were supposed to confiscate from every polling place? Where were they? What were the technical plans behind that? Of course, the answer is there were none. Yeah, they didn't know what they were going to do. This is, I believe, the lawyers have this phrase: consciousness of guilt.
Interesting.
Right. It's a real thing. When you do something that is a big flag that says, I just did this because I know I've done something wrong that I have to cover up or distract from, or whatever phrase you want to use, that is not helpful to your defense. What is your defense of taking those papers out of the White House, sir? And I'm sure right now, the journalists at Fox News and places are looking sideways, up and down, for any evidence that any president ever before Trump took anything from the right. They're going to do they're looking for a whataboutism on this. They're looking hard, they're looking high, they're looking low. So we'll wait for that to come out. And of course, the answer will be yes. Barack Obama took a composition paper written by Malia in her 8th grade English class that had been in the entranceway to the Oval Office so that people could read it. And Obama took that and nobody said anything. And you know what? Full equivalence, right? That's what they're going to say. It's not going to.
Obama took a big pen, and that proves that he was a socialist and he was trying to cover something up, and he had to deal with Russia.
Yep.
These are some other nice details. The National Archives reportedly retrieving the Kim Jong-un love letters to Trump from Mar-a-Lago. That's part of the deal, and this is from the Independent, so take it with a grain of salt. Trump filled burn bags with shredded White House records in violation of federal law, according to at least one report. So they do have a source on that.
Okay, wait a minute, hold it. So, wait. Now, this adds a different dimension to the story because we need to know what the ratio of actual papers that you could still read that were taken that Trump thought would be fully incriminating versus how many bags of shredded shit did he take, because you didn't want to even put those in the garbage, right? Because a lot of stuff that ends up in the garbage gets scoured and gets scavenged, and people can find it. So, but again, this ups the consciousness of guilt quotient another 3 levels, because he didn't only take stuff that at some level that, well, I don't want to shred this one. I don't want to rip it. I like this one. And this is just a thank you note from Putin and a good luck in 2024 note from Putin or something. I don't want to shred that. I'll keep that. I mean, you don't know. You just don't know.
So that's what they have as far as that goes in terms of him taking. But it doesn't seem like I would assume at some point we're going to accuse Black Lives Matter of taking these documents, breaking into Mar-a-Lago and throwing them there, and that's what they're doing to incriminate.
Planted evidence, yeah, because
that has to be what happened.
Yeah, well, as you know, Britt, the FBI they do that a lot. They plant evidence a lot and then arrest.
I would say that there's that. We also we should examine the censoring, the actual censoring of Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney by the grand old party, the Republicans. And in doing so, they said that what Cheney and Kinzinger were doing were that they were actually objecting to legitimate political discourse. January the 6th of 2021 and the storming of the Capitol has now been officially labeled by the Republican Party as legitimate political discourse, Brad. And Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger have no right whatsoever to shit on that. And how dare they? And F those guys.
Well, Yeah, right. Uh, if anyone was falling for the fiction of some kind of defendable um, line in between Trumpism and the Republican Party, and never Trumpers being completely off the reservation, but a lot of Republicans who just decided that it was easier and better for their careers to go along for the ride, and we'll put up with him and we'll correct him along the way, and he'll do our bidding, and he'll rubber stamp the judges, and everything will be fine, and we'll get through it, and we'll tolerate it. But at the end, Donald Trump will leave office, whether it's after 4 or 8 years, and we can get back to being the kind of Republicans that we've grown to hate over decades, centuries now, actually. We can get back to those kind of Republicans again, and they can practice that kind of republicanism. The answer is no. It's not that simple. And I don't know to what extent that statement, which I guess was read out loud by Mitt Romney's niece, one of the most loathsome people to possibly walk the earth right now. She is just dreadful. That
She's
Rona
really bad. Yeah.
Rona Romney McDaniel McNugget, whatever her name is. She signed off on this, and this is the Republican National Committee, which I'm sure one way to foul that one off is, well, the Republican National Committee doesn't speak for me, blah, blah. I don't, right? They'll probably try to do that. Or I didn't hear about that statement, or I don't know about it, or, but there's no getting around it. There's no getting around it. You have to try to sift out the noise of, Donald Trump's losing his popularity. It's going down. He's desperate. That's why he's lashing out, versus the party itself embracing Trumpism, embracing the overthrow of the government, embracing the violence on January 6th at the Capitol as legitimate political discourse. It's the same way that Lee Harvey Oswald was having legitimate political discourse with John F. Kennedy on November 22nd, 1963. Now, you can interpret that different, but I considered it legitimate political discourse, and it did change the politics of the country. Nicely done, Lee. Good work. And nicely done, Republican Party. Trump is your guy.
April of 1994, Tim McVeigh, political. It was like legitimate political discourse.
No doubt about it. There you go.
Alfred P. Murrah federal building, right there.
Yeah.
So that's what you got. But both things can be correct in that Donald Trump may be getting less popular, and the Republican Party may be hitching their wagon to something that's a dead bang loser. I mean, both of those things can be correct.
I definitely agree with that. That's true.
I mean, and
by the way, it wouldn't be the first time somebody bought a bad stock, and the stock. If you think you're catching a falling knife, Donald Trump. If you think that he's hit rock bottom and that Donald Trump is oversold and he's about to make a big comeback, go ahead, buy him. Yeah. He's yours. Own him. But you're probably hitting the center of the target there, because Donald Trump can be getting actually less popular at the same time, and the hardcore in the center is getting harder each moment. They're digging in harder and harder and harder, and there's not a lot of excitement in North Carolina, really, in the U.S. Senate race on the Republican side. I mean, there's 3 people still standing, barely. Ted Budd, the suck up to Trump, the full suck up to Trump, who's an idiot, right? Pat McCrory, the discredited, already defeated governor, who checked his soul at the door many, many years ago. He should have stopped after being mayor of Charlotte. He would have retired as a beloved politician in a Democratic city as a Republican mayor, but he kept reaching. And then, Mark, what the fuck am I still doing in this race, Walker, pretending that everything is going great? So those are the 3. But
the great Mark Walker story was that he was going to pause the campaign to decide what he wanted to do, and they unveiled he's got this huge bus now. He's going to take the big tour and all this other shit. And the guy doesn't have a chance in hell, right? There's no chance that this guy has it all.
Nobody takes buses in North Carolina. We're all drivers. We don't.
That's exactly right.
But the interesting, at least to me, I guess there's two Senate races that seem to have sort of caught fire in terms of how obnoxious they're getting, and they're up in the north of us in Pennsylvania and Ohio. Those two races in Pennsylvania, it's the Democratic side, and in Ohio, it's the Republican side, and the three Republicans who are standing out and apparently have some kind of a chance here. They are all three of them have bought Caterpillar equipment to dig the deepest hole of bullshit that they can in trying to suck up to Trumpism. You know, it's that J.D. Vance, the hillbilly elegy guy. It's that horse piece of shit Josh Mandel from Cleveland, who's just beyond speech. And then there's a third person. It's a woman. Is it Marcy Kaptur? Mm-hmm. And she's just horrible. Mm-hmm. Oh my God! Have you just seen the shit that they're saying? How they're willing to embrace Trumpism till the last dog dies. Yeah, I'd do it again. I'd bring them back. I'd get it no matter what it takes to get Donald Trump back in there. I'm out front. They're playing that game, and they think that that's a winning hand in Ohio because Trump has won the state in the presidential elections 2 times in a row, and they've decided that that's the ticket. So that's pretty out there. That's pretty out there up there.
I'll say.
Yeah, it is. It is. So we'll watch those. We'll get a little bit more detail. You can read about those people up there. They'll make you sick. They'll make you sick. You do. I mean, they're just horrible. They're just horrible. What they think is appealing to voters, and there is a body of thought, and I kind of agree with it. The worst thing that's ever happened to this country politically is primaries, political primaries, because as the years go on, as the decades go on, they tend to whittle down into whatever may be at any given moment the most radical element of a political party that has the energy to come out in these low turnout elections, and therefore you get the hardest right, in this case Trumpy candidates on the Republican side, and on the Democratic side it's not quite so pronounced. You don't automatically get the furthest left candidate in every state running for Senate. It doesn't quite work that way. In Ohio, for instance, against the clowns that are running on the Republican side, your leading person is Tim Ryan, who's been in the House of Representatives for many, many years. And yes, he is a liberal. He's an absolute liberal. But you cannot compare a down the line classical Democratic liberal of this era from the Youngstown area with what's going on the Republican side. There is no balance here. There is no balance between Marjorie Taylor Greene and AOC. It's not the same thing, but they want to do that. That's what they want to do.
Well, that's what the media. That's the classic media is. Well, they have this person and they have this person, and you're absolutely right. It's not the same.
Can't do it.
Well, you're both criminals. One of you committed murder. One of you jaywalked. I mean, it's not. No, those are not commensurate things. I'm sorry, those are not equivalent things. But that's what the media does all the time.
Right. All right. Well, I got to go. There's some great half pipe Olympic action coming up here.
Yeah, you might want to go check that out.
And I don't even know what half pipe means. I mean, is that like the marijuana isn't quite as potent? What is that?
Did you go ahead and re-up on Peacock so you can make sure you didn't miss anything?
Well, I'm not a paying member of Peacock, but it is on my thing. Okay.
Yeah.
So now I'm gonna I guess I'm gonna make myself sound like I'm eligible for Rick the psychologist from the Progressive commercials here.
Like your dad.
No, did I misread something, or wasn't the original thing with Peacock that they were going to do what they do with Hulu, which is you can get the free version and watch commercials, or you could pay premium and then either have no commercials or so anyway. So I put it on the other day when the Olympics started because I wanted to see what else was
Yeah, what
being
else they were offering?
broadcast, and it was incomprehensible. The menu was just absurd. They just had 40 different pictures of different shit. You couldn't tell whether it was live or not. It was really really bad and
Their
confusing. And
their platform is, some of us have been on Peacock for a while because Vince McMahon decided to put his content over there, and they paid him about $1 billion to put all the WWE shit over there. So I've got it, but it's not a great platform. Do you remember
now
1990?
are you paying?
Yeah,
Are you paying? How
yeah.
much is it? How much
Like
is it?
10 or 12. It's like 10 or 12 a month. Whatever I
Ooh,
was, it's about what I was paying
ooh.
for. It was whatever I was paying for WWE Network. I basically just moved that from here to here. That's all that I did. It's the same
But
amount of money.
that's for instance, that's more than Disney Plus. That's like you can get the Disney bundle for about that price
Can
almost,
you?
Yeah.
But Peacock, that you get some stuff on there. Now, do you remember something in 1992 that was ridiculed greatly called the Olympic triple cast? I bet
Yeah,
you'll remember
sure.
this.
Yeah.
This was something that the cable providers through with NBC offered, and you could watch. It was like pay-per-view. In addition to the regular channel NBC was on,
Oh.
you had 3 different channels of pay-per-view stuff. In addition to the porn that you used to buy back in '92 on cable, Brad, they would have Olympic events on all the time, and it was called the Olympic triple cast, and it was widely mocked. I think it was seen greatly as a failure. So this is where we are now in
Well, but
2022.
they gave that up. But now,
Yeah,
if you're one of the 5 people left in America that has regular cable,
right.
there's very few of us now. Actually, I saw the numbers on this. Um, the number of people who have what you would call regular cable, like you had 20 years ago, when
Right.
is it's now half of what it was then. The
Jeepers.
rest of the other half has scattered to
Yeah.
other services or streaming, or they
Mhm.
don't care anymore. So it's still 50 million or so people on cable, and if you have cable or satellite, you get most of all the channels. To me, it's always been plenty the last 10 or 15 years that it's on NBC, it's on True TV, it's on
Right. Right.
Bravo, it's on
USA. Yeah.
it's on CNBC, whatever. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm confusing the all the channels with when the March Madness comes on 4 channels that first day. But you know
Right.
what I'm saying? There's still 3 or 4 different feeds that I can watch of Olympics if I'm so desirous of it, and that's plenty. That's just plenty. I cannot complain about that. And I don't know what else there is to see on the Peacock thing. I think I can live just nicely without it. And I want to thank you for not attacking the Chinese government during this podcast,
Yeah.
because they don't like that, and
They're
they
good
know who you
people.
are.
They're
They are very
outstanding
good people.
people.
It's a
Yeah.
great,
They're doing good jobs.
great, great country there. All
We'll
right,
see you tomorrow.
try it again.
Week.